Sleepy warning, obviously. How's everyone doing? Bit hectic, innit? To paraphrase a well-used joke, someone asked me the other day if I was looking forward to fall, and I assumed they meant the downfall of late-stage capitalism. For those of you that know me, I'm back again to tan-splain politics at you, and there's a lot to get through. And for all of you that hate follow me, yes, that blonde bastard is back again to give you facts that you find inconvenient. Been a bit of a week, hasn't it? We had Robinson and his knuckle-dragging acolytes bringing national shame on the streets of London. And who were the speakers at this event? Literally pro-Nazi fanboys, you know, foreigners from Europe, but they're fine if they're far right, eh? Oh yeah, and Kremlin apologists, European MPs that had sold out their own country for Putin because patriotism. Plus the richest weirdo in the world inciting violence. So as we all know, Charlie Kirk was killed, right? And my video about it caused me to be threatened with extraordinary levels of violence for the entire week. Because violence is okay when they do it, and the only free speech that is allowed is speech that they like. And the US government encouraged the doxing of individuals for doing the terrible thing of repeating Charlie Kirk's own words, i.e. hateful extremism, and then started firing satirists. Fortunately in the UK, we don't do shit like that. The thing I found the most hilarious about the Led by Donkeys saga is how literally none of them have ever heard of the Streisand effect. By arresting people for freedom of expression and political satire, they made that shit go global. Anyway, what I'm here to talk to you about today goes beyond, you know, the piss taking that I could carry on with for another, 10 minutes. What I'm going to outline to you is how this is all linked. And by this, I mean the hateful rhetoric that was spread by Charlie Kirk, that is spread by Farage, and is perpetuated by Robinson. There is a common thread that runs through all of this. Identity crises in the public that has been subjected to brutal austerity, people not feeling very powerful, so turning to nationalism as a way to live in denial of the reality of their situation. There's also a struggle for resources, which makes people very angry and very susceptible to radicalisation. But let me be clear, with Kirk, with Farage, with Robinson, there is an international network of hate. There is a pipeline. Same donors, same troll farms, same radicalisation, same scapegoats. And the people that are laughing all the way to the bank, the figureheads I just mentioned, making extraordinary bank by conning people. And then of course there's the billionaires that would rather fund the fash than pay their fair share of taxes. So let's get into it, shall we? The first thing I need to make clear is that none of this is random. It's a playbook, and all characters use the same script. Let's just take a look at Charlie Kirk, shall we? Failed to get into West Point. Got on the radar of Team Trump. Turned the chip on his shoulder into a career claiming that conservatives are silenced on campus, then founded Turning Point USA to fight so-called woke indoctrination, whilst doing the very thing that he was accusing others of. Because that's how it works, that's how they all do it. He wasn't a grassroots hero. He was MAGA's professional grievance salesman. Nigel Farage does the same thing, just whilst pretending to be poor, despite being privately educated and fucking minted. His grievance, well, it was Brussels, wasn't it? The place that paid him very handsomely to do precisely fuck all for British interests and instead ally with the far right in Europe, all of which are bought by the Kremlin, FYI. What's his pitch? Persecution. He's not persecuted though, is he? How many houses has he got? Oh, and little Stephen Yaxley Lennon, otherwise known as Tommy fucking Robinson, frames himself as a silenced martyr when in fact he slanders people. He's hounded by the establishment. Who's funding you, Tommy? You don't have to dig in far to see that he's bought. Claims that his movement's all about protecting our women. But the receipts show otherwise, and so do the bruises on the faces of the women. Because his rallies, his hate riots, half of the people, the men that attended, had been reported for domestic abuse. And the EDL, the now proscribed organisation that he started that was deeply racist, full of nonsense. And yes, women beaters. So what I'm describing here is essentially stage 1, manufacturing victimhood. And what's step 2? Scapegoating. Kirk blamed professors and what, drag queens? Yeah, terrible people. One of them imparts knowledge, the other serves cunt. Farage blames migrants for, everything. From housing shortages to NHS waiting times. Remind me, Nigel, where's that money for the NHS? You know, that extraordinary sum that was on the side of a bus. His Brexit caused all the problems and was riddled with Russian interference. Robinson pretends that he's gagged by the courts because he can't blame the Muslims for anything, despite the fact that he literally nearly made a grooming case fall apart by interfering in the process of our justice system. A system he's no stranger to because he's a persistent criminal. Step 3, an important one. Tribe and identity. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA wasn't just a group, it was essentially a lifestyle brand based around God, political radicalisation, but rallies, merch, social media clout. Farage had UKIP, the Brexit Party, then eventually Reform. Failed multiple times to become an MP. He just rebranded and then decided to settle on identity politics. Robinson has his loyal street army of knuckle draggers who bond over fucking flags, chants, rallies, and the fact that they all feel very disappointed that they can't go around lynching black people. So through this tribe and identity, something interesting happens. You're no longer just individually angry, you're a part of a collective, a tribe. Loyal to the cause, hostile to outsiders who couldn't possibly understand you. Sounds a bit like a cult, doesn't it? Because it is. And that's precisely how radicalisation works. And all of those hate preachers that I've mentioned know that. The accents are different. The audiences are different. The radicalisation process is the same. But I can tell you one thing. Despite them claiming the contrary, neither group gives a solitary shit about women. What's been taking place in Britain isn't about protecting women. It's about them protecting their right to beat us without consequences. They want to own women, not protect them. And that's where it ties into the US and MAGA. Women denied life-saving abortions, bleeding out and dying. A woman that died being kept as an incubator for a child that had no chance of survival. That's the future here if Nigel Farage wins, because they have no original ideas. They're literally just the UK extension of MAGA. Why? Because Nigel saw how profitable that is. All it entails is just betraying your country and making it weaker, and who benefits from that? Mr. Putin. Anyway, moving on, what do we have next? Recruitment. Yeah. Who do they target? Predominantly the young and the financially precarious. People that are easily led and people that are enraged by feeling that they don't have enough resources. So it brings out that kind of tribal, instinctual, mindless behaviour. Kirk essentially turned Turning Point USA into a travelling circus of grievances. 300 plus student chapters, campus tours with slogans like socialism sucks, handing out free t-shirts, professor watch lists to target teachers they didn't like. And guess what? Britain imported the model. Turning Point UK launched with the same branding, the same US backers, the same social media stunts. Hope Not Hate exposed how they tried to plant themselves in the education system in Britain. Schools, colleges, even sixth forms. And then there's the digital battlefield. Gaming platforms, TikTok, Instagram. Research shows far-right recruiters slipping into the DMs of young people, pushing memes onto their feeds, catching bored 16, 17-year-olds before they can get an ADHD diagnosis, and then implanting a brand new hyperfocus. But this branches off everywhere, into the conspiracy network, into the incel community, even through TikToks about traditional values and, you know, stay-at-home mothers and women that are eschewing feminism in favour of being barefoot and pregnant, even though women are statistically happier, single and child-free. Young people are being radicalised by content that initially looks innocuous. Why? Because they are paying social media platforms loads to peddle it via ads. Which brings me neatly on to the money. Now, don't think for a second that any of this that I'm mentioning, as it's becoming clear, is remotely grassroots. It's franchised, manufactured outrage which is bankrolled by billionaires. Why? Because, well, I don't know, every social media platform owner is allied with Trump and happy to push a far-right agenda because it causes discord in society and communities and, I don't know, contributes to civil unrest. And why do those billionaires with an agenda want civil unrest? Because they don't want democracy anymore. They want to be the new lords. Turning Point USA, Kirk's venture, raked in tens of millions a year. Dick and Liz Uline, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. The same family funding election denial. Christian nationalist billionaires. You know, there's nothing more profitable than God. They treated the culture war like an investment. Destabilise democracy, deregulate markets, and your portfolio stays nice and safe. To hell with the cost of the fabric of society. Because God is good. Yeah? Here in Britain, Farage's network runs on hedge funders, offshore cash, the billionaire funding of the oil industry. There's a reason why they're climate change deniers. Aaron Banks and Leave.eu were fined for misusing data and questioned over Russian business approaches before Brexit. The orbit doesn't survive on Nigel Farage's substantial GB News income, no. In fact, a lot of it's funded by Richard Tice, who has enormous family wealth, yet is claiming that he speaks for someone on universal credit, who he would demolish the lives of if he ever got anywhere near number 10. Because the real people that Reform have contempt for aren't migrants, it's their own voters. What about little tiny tears Tommy Robinson? He received funds for legal fees from Elon Musk and Tristan Tate, you know, the guy that's accused of sex trafficking and raping and abusing women. These rallies are all about protecting women, yeah? Who else? The very aptly named US tech billionaire Robert Shillman. I shit you not, that's his name. The Observer reported that he received funds from him. He's said to be a key figure in the anti-jihad movement, which is quite ironic because the radicalisation process that is perpetuated by people like Robinson, even Farage, Charlie Kirk, is no different from the radicalisation process that produces jihadis. And far-right extremism and jihadi extremism cause each other. Both focus on the disenfranchised. Both give them a sense of brotherhood, something to fight for, like they're fighting for their culture or their identity. The only difference is the skin colour or the accent of the hate preacher that is radicalising. And Shillman acolytes at Rebel News also include Katie Hopkins, and he's a former board member of Friends of the Israeli Defence Forces. Interesting, isn't it, that they're now funding the far right, along with people idiotic enough to give their universal credit payment to Tomu, who is alleged to, you know, spend it all on foreign holidays. Hate pays. And as someone that's been talking on the left, that has been making anti-fascist content for 5 years, I can definitely assure you that the left doesn't. It's not angry blokes in pubs anymore. It's billionaires who have found that fear is way more profitable than hope, that hatred is more profitable than decency. Then there's the Kremlin connection, which is actually directly linked to troll farms and bot armies, because this is how they're getting people on social media. Let's start with the Kremlin connection, shall we? And Farage is a great place to start with that. In 2014, he said, "Putin is the leader I admire the most." Direct quote. In 2024, years into the war, after Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, he told LBC that the West provoked that invasion. And it wasn't a slip. He's been running Kremlin-friendly narratives for years, and there was no Kremlin-friendly narrative more poignant than Brexit. And Robinson, as I said earlier, he platforms them directly at his rallies, people that have sold out their own country for Putin. Taking backhanders, agreeing to vote in Putin's best interests. And how does Kirk come into all of this? Whilst there wasn't evidence of direct funding from Russia, Russian, Chinese and Iranian state media leapt on it, seeded conspiracy theories about his death, including questioning whether or not he was killed because the US supports Ukraine. What was NATO doing? Etc. AP and Politico both talked about how adversaries flooded the zone with these narratives shortly after he was killed. Senior Russian figures speculated publicly without evidence. Dmitry Medvedev in particular. So Kirk's being used by the Russian disinformation network, the same machine that boosts Tommy Robinson's output. The same machine that boosts GB News and Nigel Farage and Reform MPs. The UK's Intelligence and Security Committee was warned in the Russia report that Moscow benefits from this polarisation, and all three, Kirk, Robinson and Farage, have been feeding into that machine for years. And how do they make this go viral? Troll farms, bot farms, and now AI tools. I presume you've seen Mountainhead. Well, that's coming over the hill. Yeah, just wait till the videos start dropping. The Oxford Internet Institute found more than 70 countries running organised disinformation campaigns. That's why it's fucking everywhere. Just look at what happened after Charlie Kirk was killed. Just look at what happens when a rare case of an asylum seeker committing a crime occurs. Bots pile on, people calling for civil war, including the richest dickhead in the world, Elon Musk. Generative tools summarising rumours and mistruths, amplified by huge follower accounts like the aforementioned accused rapist. Tate. Utah's Governor Stephen Cox warned foreign adversaries use bots to stoke violence, and AI is only adding fuel to the fire. The rumour mill goes into overdrive. Things trend, but it's not organic. In fact, terrifyingly, a third of all accounts on social media could be bots. Other places have estimated that could be as much as half of the internet. It gives an illusion of mass consensus. So whilst it's initially fake, real people believe it. That's why your nan or your auntie think that Charlie Kirk was a nice guy when he was a Christian nationalist extremist. That explains why your brother or your dad will go to a Tommy Robinson rally, not really quite knowing why they're there, but will completely deny any assertion that they're racist. People being radicalised by the algorithms. Brock, Perplexity, quoted mistruths about the killing of Charlie Kirk even before any evidence had materialised. Elon Musk's tool, he's got a vested interest in this narrative. They all have. They're all pro-Trump. Think about why all these billionaires are funding this, are funding civil unrest, spreading misinformation and disinformation, misidentifying suspects. They can reach billions in an instant. It's not fringe, it's infrastructure. An entire machine designed to radicalise not just people, but attention itself. This is cyber warfare. This is a psyop, and it sounds like a conspiracy, but it's not. It feels like it's everywhere because it is everywhere. And why are the papers backing it? Because they're all billionaires with their money offshore who feel that capitalism and democracy itself has failed, so they're shoring up their assets for the future. I fear the same is happening with broadcasters. Dissenting voices are silenced. 70+% of the world is under authoritarian rule, and that's not as an accident. So this brings me back to the three figures that I've discussed today. They're the front men. I can tell you one thing with certainty, none of this is about free speech. It sure as fuck isn't about patriotism. It's about laundering fascism and extremism and racism into the mainstream while the super rich cash in. It's not a grassroots movement. It's not the will of the fucking people. Anyone falling for this isn't falling for it by accident. It's a multi-billion-pound radicalisation scheme which spans all the information sources, and that is why you're seeing people that you never imagined would be believing this, believing it. And if you're not falling for it, well done. Anyway, until next time, don't have nightmares.